I want to record it for him. And what I wanted to do today was just go over the syllabus, and I don't know if everyone has a book, so I didn't want to just start jumping into it. I would rather have everybody read first. Oh, good. I don't know. It's not really showing up. Is that showing up? That
I got it. It's airline operations, but it just doesn't show up because of
right. Oh, because you have the background on.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep, there it is. Actually, really good. We're going to follow it closely. There's a couple of things I'm going to add, but I just want to go over the syllabus. And we're going to do it not from the perspective of the pilot. And I learned a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to learn some stuff with all of you as well. But as I was a pilot going through my career, and as a first officer, and even as a captain, it took a long time for me to kind of piecemeal all these different operational parts and all the different team members. As maybe one time I would have to deal with load planning, and the next time I'd have to deal with the mechanic, and the next time a gate agent, the next time maybe a legal problem. And it took many years. And that's why I think this course will give you a really good perspective from other than the pilot, and from, like, say, the airline manager or the general counsel or the mechanics, or and I find it, as I look through the book, it's really interesting, and it will serve you well. As you can, then you'll see how you will fit as a pilot in the whole team of what they're trying to accomplish. And I think the first thing we're going to do is the regulatory environment. And I just put on the assignments what I want you to read, and it's in that part 1, and it's either chapter or section, just the 1, 2, 3, and in the book, which is the regulatory framework, market, product, and customer, and business strategy and airline models for operating managers. That, and then on the resources, it's all on the resources. I already uploaded it. The Paris Convention of 1919, which was really the first, well, it wasn't the first regulations. The first regulation ever in aviation was in 1784, when in Paris they did the balloon. They were flying the balloons, and I think it was like 1783 or something. Like I even forget the guy's name, but I should remember the name. It's kind of the Orville and Wilbur Wright of balloons. But anyway, he got airborne and flew the balloon, and then within a year they had like 1,500 balloons over Paris. So, and I don't know how the laws work in France, but the police put regulations on it, said you need a permit before you can go fly a balloon. So that was actually the first. But for modern aviation and international aviation, the first one was the Paris Convention of 1919. And I want you to read that and just kind of review it. I mean, you don't have to memorize it like a lawyer was going to do it, but just so in 2 weeks, because next Monday is Martin Luther King Day, so we're going to miss that. But in 2 weeks, then we can talk about it with an understanding of what's going on. And also another one in there is the history of the ICAO and the Chicago Convention of 1944, which is, and I'm going out of order, but that's a really interesting one because it was right during World War II, and they were anticipating what rules and international conventions, or what rules and regulations they would have for after the war. And it was actually quite well, anyway, read it. It's quite interesting. There's another section, milestones in international civil aviation. And then I'm sorry, I'm out of order, but then the Warsaw Convention of 1929, which created rules for international flying, and the Montreal Convention of 1999, which updated that, and the Chicago Convention, which is essentially the modern rules that we operate under now. There are in there somewhere, they're going to talk about freedom rights, like first freedom rights, second, third, fourth. I don't know if you ever seen in the news, they talk about fifth freedom rights. And then cabotage, which of course, unions are always fighting cabotage, because the last thing you want is Air Madagascar coming and flying flights from New York to LA without American workers. But anyway, there's these 5 freedoms, and then there's 6, 7, 8, and 9th freedoms as well, but they never became codified into law and regulations. So it's the first 5 that are the most important. So we're going to explore all that regulatory framework, and not in the book is one thing we're going to touch on is the legal issues that airlines have. Could be as simple as, and I actually, just from personal experience, guy's putting his bag up in the overhead bin, and or he opens it after he landed, I guess, and it comes out and conks him on the head. So now he wants, $50,000 from Delta Airlines. It's like that kind of stuff that you have to deal with, all the way up to actually legitimate ones where you may have someone in the airline make a mistake or make an error, and they may have legitimate cases. We'll explore some of that too. And that's really not in the textbook. And the other thing that I wanted to explore, not next week, but in the whole course, is the labor management relations, which they don't really touch on it that little bit in the book, but it's huge. The operational limitations that unions will put on the airline, which from my view, from the pilot's view, is a good thing. But there's costs involved to it. And in the airline management, they know that too. But there's cost to that as well. And there's cost to not having a union also. So we'll explore that. And we'll also go an exploration of planning, like what's our product going to be? Is it just flying passengers, or is it flying cargo, or is it a hybrid, or flying the mail? And are we flying? Okay, so we're going to fly passengers. All right, we're going to be a passenger airline. Okay, are we going to be a charter? Are we going to be a super low cost Legion Airlines? Are we going to be a full service carrier like Hawaiian or Delta or American or United? We're going to be a low cost carrier like, Southwest, I think, is the best American example, although they're changing a little bit, becoming a little more hybrid. Spirit would be a real low cost example, where they're charging for water, charging for overhead bin space. So it's like, okay, what are we trying? Who are we going after? Are we going after the Minneapolis to Cancun crowd? Or are we going after the Boston to New York business traveler, or the Boston or the New York to LA business? You gotta, just because you're a passenger airline, you still have to target what it is you're trying to accomplish, what customers you're trying to get, and which ones are better and which ones may or may not be better for what you're trying to do. If you're Hawaiian Airlines, even though a very lucrative route may be Boston to New York shuttle, they're probably not interested in that. They have other things they want to accomplish. So
Spirit is awful.
Oh, they're terrible.
They're horrible. Fly us so we can break yours. That's their motto.
I hate to even say, I'm going to say it. I'm half joking, but I call them like, and you got to remember the perspective coming from a Delta guy, right?
Right.
And it's not just Delta, but we call them the little crashy airlines.
The little okay. Yeah.
Just joking,
Yeah.
But anyway, so we get, there's a lot of different airline business models that work. Like Alaska Airlines, they're up and down the West Coast. They're doing Mexico, they're doing Hawaii, they're doing Alaska. They do a little bit of other stuff as well. You got Hawaiian, of course, they're very specialized with what they do and where they go. And it works. And then you got American Airlines, which is just huge, and United, and it works, in Southwest. There's a lot of different ways to successfully navigate, but you have to define your business, and I want us to do that. So that we're going to look at the different business models, network design strategies and markets, different products that we could offer, and it's not just airline seats, and which customers we're going to go after. When you go to the grocery store, and I'm digressing a little bit, but you get some bananas. Well, the bananas are going to sit on the shelf for only so long, and then they're going to be rotten and they're worthless, right? So there's a time, or milk, or anything. There's a time after which it's worthless. Well, I think probably the ultimate product that is worth a lot, and then goes off a cliff and is worth nothing, is an airline seat. The second you push back, if it's empty, it's worth zero, where it might have been worth a lot more an hour ago. And this is the one we're going to spend some time on, is pricing strategies. And I find it absolutely fascinating. And we'll look at it in depth, because in part because I think it's really interesting. But they will take a sophisticated yield management, like any airline like Delta, American, United, they will do this. They will take it by flight, by day of the week, by time of day. Clearly, if you have anything special going on, I mean, a perfect example would be like the Super Bowl. So if they have a Super Bowl in Phoenix, normally, say like Delta would fly, they might fly once a day from New York to Phoenix, and a couple times a day from Salt Lake to Phoenix. And they're 737s. But when the Super Bowl's in Phoenix, all of a sudden they're flying 777s and A330s from everywhere. And it's really expensive. But they will look at 6 months out, this particular airplane for a flight on Wednesday, October 6th in the afternoon from San Francisco to Phoenix. 6 months out, we should have, out of the 160 seats on the airplane, they may say we should have 20 of the seats sold. And if there's only 18 of the seats sold, the price goes down. And if there's 25 sold, the price goes up, and they follow it all the way. But not every seat in the airplane is the same price, is the same product. The seats in the back for the leisure traveler going to Disney World with the kids is not the same product as the economy comfort business traveler or the first class business traveler. But anyway, we're going to look at all that in the yield management, which I find very interesting and just fascinating. We're going to look at airports and different designs. JFK had looked like they did it in the 60s, and it looked like the Starship Enterprise, the way their terminal worked. Well, that was great in the 60s when there was nothing, there was a few 707s, but a lot of them were the Lockheed Electras and stuff. And now it just doesn't work. And so they actually knocked it down. And there's other designs and we'll look at all those different designs and what's good for one type, and there's costs, so you don't want to make an Atlanta when you have Kona Airport, like you don't need to. And we're going to look at the airport designs as well, and the advantages and disadvantages of each design. Then we're going to go and look into operations and the environment that we're operating in. It could be weather and density and how dense the market is, the city pair that we're working, planning and control, crew planning, aircraft planning. I mean, you can schedule the crap out of a 737 and have the thing flying as much as you possibly can make it fly 15 hours a day. But the crew, you can't just put a crew with that plane and fly it that much, because there's rules. There's the FAA rules, and then there's union rules, and so they're going to be a lot more restrictive than just on the airplane. So you got the crew planning, you got maintenance planning. You're running these airplanes, and you have to have them pass through a maintenance station and have enough downtime so they can get maintained as well. So you have to put all that in there. And so together, that's all resource planning. And then internationally, you come in, you have to have more time because you're going to have immigration, customs guys are going to come and pour over the airplane. You're going to have quarantine effects as well. So you got to take that into account. And then once we do that, that's kind of the big stuff. Then we're going to get into operations during the day, and on one particular day. And you're going to have the perspective of the pilot, which we're more geared to. But you have the perspective of the load planner and the dispatcher and the maintenance and the gate agent and the flight attendants and the fuelers and the guy that's taking care of the lab service and the water service and all of these parts, any one of which just stops the operation. So it's like this, it's really interesting to watch. My experience are the hubs, are the Delta hubs, of Salt Lake City and Atlanta and LA. And it's almost like watching a dance, like all this stuff when it all is working right. It's really pretty to watch. And then you have the staffing, and then you have to have the training. Not only do the pilots have to be trained to fly the plane, but the tug driver has to be trained on the tug. The baggage handlers have to be trained on the baggage carts and the loaders. And there's so much training. And then you throw in some weather, and now you got the de-icing guys, you got the de-icing trucks, which, the darn things are expensive. They're like, $500,000 each. And so do you have 50 of them so you can go fast when it's snowing? Well, maybe in Minneapolis you want that, or Salt Lake City you want that, or Denver. Is it worth it in Seattle? Probably not. So I can tell you from experience, Delta has like 3 trucks in Seattle, but then they push back 30 airplanes. So they measure that. It's like, okay, it's worth it to take the hit once every 2 years that we need to de-ice in Seattle. So how do you measure your assets and the best investments you can make? Ramp operations, baggage, air cargo, which is like a totally separate thing. And these airlines, you'll have Delta Air Cargo, Alaska Air Cargo, Southwest Air Cargo. United, a great example of United Cargo. And I know they fly 777s now, but they used to fly the 747 from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia. And they filled up the belly with cargo, and they were break even. So any passengers was pure profit. And of course, they'd fill the thing up anyway with passengers. Let's see, dispatch, flight following. And of course, how does this all wrap into safety? And we're going to look at the different, and we'll also look at a passenger's perspective as well. And then the last section that we're going to go over will be an operational disruption. Could be predictable, like weather. We have a winter storm going through, or we have a hurricane coming through, or it could be as awful and terrible as 9/11, and everything gets screwed up. You get planes, you get crews all over. Like I talked about, you have the plane scheduling, then you have flight attendant scheduling, which is not as restrictive as the pilot scheduling. And when you have a disruption, now you have everything all over the place. You have airplanes over here and the pilots with them, but they're out of time, but the flight attendants are still in time, but now you don't have the pilots. And then you finally get pilots in there and then the flight attendants are out of time. And how do you recover from these disruptions? And we'll look at all the different departments and how that fits in. We get causes, consequences, and then how management approaches these disruptions and how they recover from them. And then the last, and I mentioned it already, but I want to spend some time at the end of the course on labor management relations and how it fits in. It's not exactly like the Teamsters, and like the truck drivers or United Auto Workers or any of these typical unions. Although we do have contracts that we negotiate, but they're subject to the Railway Labor Act, which restricts both sides actually. So it's harder to strike, but then it's harder to force things on the crews as well. And how that fits in, like the Airline Pilots Association, which is many airlines, Delta, United, Alaska, Hawaiian, let's see who else would be, maybe JetBlue, I'm not sure. But then you have Southwest, which has their own union, and American, which has their own union. So they work just with their airline, but then you have ALPA, which is all these different airlines. And we'll take a look at how all that fits in. There's a big safety function of the unions, which is really good. And we'll look at how that fits into everything as well. So by the end of the course, I just want you all to have a working knowledge and an understanding of that there's many, many different team members and have an idea of what's going on, because when you're working as an airline pilot, sorry about that. I think it's very helpful. It would have helped me to have a better understanding a lot sooner of what all is going on around me. Sometimes I felt like the horse with the blinders on, rather than having the big picture of what's going on and what we're trying to accomplish. It'll be a little simpler grading than I think than the last course I did. We'll have some quizzes like we did last time. Participation, and we're going to talk about, I want everybody to be talking about all this stuff and we can have discussions. I want a little more of that. And then we'll do a midterm and then a final. And they're going to be essays, more so than they were on the other one. And there's opportunities for extra credit. What I'd like is and I haven't thought it totally through, but I want you to make a plan. It'll be something like this, like on the final, it'll be like, make a plan for an airline and just defend what you're doing. Say, oh, I want to do a low cost carrier model. And this is what I'm going to do. Here's my target market. And here's the network strategies that I'm going to use, something like that. Do you guys have any questions about what we're going to do and what we're going to shoot at? Go ahead, David. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at the syllabus, and the syllabus doesn't have anything that you just spoke about.
About like the labor management relations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put that on there because I thought about it, but you can add that on there.
Okay.
Everything else I think is pretty close, but the labor management part I think is important. I want you guys to have an understanding of that because it's going to affect you if you're going to fly.
Sure.
And this is a good course to put that in there. And I'll update the syllabus.
Cool.
So for next time, and then next week we have off, and then we're really going to dive into it in 2 weeks, because next week is Martin Luther King Day. And so it'll be the 24th. And then the assignment is on La Lima, and it's like what I just asked you, I told you guys about. Any questions or anything to add?
Let's see. So I'm looking at the syllabus, and unless I see syllabus section 1, there's none of the reading assignments are in the syllabus, unless I'm looking at the wrong thing.
No, not in the syllabus. Like what you're looking at the syllabus, it
From La
says,
Lima,
right. So, and did you get it off of resources, right?
right, under
Okay.
resources, correct.
Right. And then the reading assignment is under assignments.
Huh,
Yeah.
hang on. So, let's see. So it's not in the syllabus, so,
Oh, it's not,
Please
yeah,
read-
there's nothing under syllabus because I wanted to upload the document and it didn't work so well. So I put the syllabus under resources.
got it.
Is where I
Okay.
uploaded it.
So for 2 weeks from today, we have to read in part 1, sections 1, 2, and 3.
And if you look under assignments, it says read part 1, section 1, 2, and 3. And then on the resources page in La Lima, I want you to just read through that, the Paris Convention and the history of ICAO, Chicago Convention, milestones in international civil aviation,
Got it.
Warsaw Convention of 1929, and Montreal Convention of 1999.
Okay, so that's also for 2 weeks from today. Got it.
And I'm looking for a familiarity with it so we can discuss it. It's not like, okay, there's going to be a legal test on the Montreal Convention or something. Nothing like that. I just want you guys to have an understanding of what an airline manager is up against. It's like, oh, I want to fly from New York to Paris and then on to Rome. Okay, well, with an American carrier, that's fine. Can I pick anybody up in Paris and take them to Rome? You know, it depends on the bilateral agreement. And I mean, the answer is no, but if you had an agreement with France and Italy for fifth freedom rights, you could. But I don't want to, I could start talking about fifth freedom rights a lot, but I want to wait till we get there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Nope, everybody understand what's expected, and we're gonna dive into it. And this one time was weird. I had a commitment today, but it'll be at noon in 2 weeks, and the rest of them will be at noon. Is my intent anyway. The published time. Anybody else? That's all I have this time. I just wanted to go over the syllabus, and then we're going to dive in 2 weeks.
Great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great week, everybody.
Take
Great,
care,
thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy New
you.
Year.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye now.
Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.